I just saw our training sessions at an unbelievably high level. And again, I've been lucky enough to play for Australia, and every time we train there, you go on 100%. That's how I wanted our training sessions to be, and again, with the support of our staff and the setup of our sessions, that's what they were.
We're delighted to announce our newest partner for Legends with Bevo. A big welcome to Ancora National. Ancora National are an incredible organisation with passionate staff that are all about giving people living with a disability a better life by helping them to find employment. They believe that everyone is deserving of living a fulfilling life with no one left behind, and they provide a range of support services to people living with a disability. To find out more, go to their website, ancoranational.com.au. Before we start this episode of Sports Legends with Bevo, a shout out to two of our sponsors, Ryan Bridges from Elders Galway and also Steve Chapman from Victor Harbour Motor Co. Make sure you see both those guys if you're looking to buy a car or buy a house or sell a car or sell a house. You'll see their details up on the screen now. Obviously two local legends, so make sure you get behind them and really appreciate their support. Well, he's played 27 Test matches for Australia, 21 ODIs, and a successful coach of the South Australian cricket team in the ODIs this year and the Sheffield Shield. Ryan Rhino Harris, great to have you on Sports Legends with Bevo.
Nice to be, Bevo.
What a dream start for you, mate. First season of coaching, as I mentioned before, ODI, and then the big one, the Sheffield Shield, broke two huge droughts. Can it be any better? And tell us, what that feeling was like when you won both of them. Yeah. And we'll get to the post celebrations afterwards as well.
Yeah, look, it was obviously a dream start to come in and I guess get the accolades of the win and the drought breaking win. But I mean, yeah, look, I've said it most of the times. Every time I've been interviewed through this process, through the whole post the season, even during that, I've been lucky enough to take over a squad that's been built over the last few years, and I'm not going to take full credit for it. I'm going to give all the credit to Sean Williams, who's still the list manager with Sucker, my right-hand man, and Tim Nilsson and Jason Gillespie are the ones that, those three really put that squad together. And I guess it was just my job to come in and, Dizzy did a really good job. He probably didn't get the success he wanted and deserved. And, for me to come in and I guess just, tweak a couple of things, a new voice and a couple of different things. I didn't change a huge amount, but just that new voice, and that it obviously worked. And we I think I look at that group and the way they train, the way they go about what they have to do around their cricket. That they deserve every success that they got. And so yeah, look, it was to come in and do that in the first year. I knew I moved back to South Australia to be with Jason, and because I knew this squad watching from afar was pretty close to something. I love the way they play. There was just a couple of games here and there, or a couple of sessions here and there that would cost probably the game, and that's where that's probably where they had to get better, and that's probably where I came in and put a lot of focus on around the game time. So, but I knew they weren't far away, so to come in and do that was pretty special. So, again, I'm very proud of what we've done as a group, but I'm certainly not going to take all the credit for it, I can tell you.
And the post-match celebrations, who was best on ground in both of those? And
far out. There were a lot. Back in the day, it probably would have been me having a crack at best on ground, but I've certainly learnt pretty quickly after about 2 days. I was definitely deep into my mid-40s, and I couldn't handle it like I used to be able to. But no, there were some boys that went. The guys had a good crack, and as they should. It's a huge achievement that what they've done, and I think they went for a couple of weeks and a couple of days here, had a couple of days off, couple more days, and then, they ended up with an end of season trip to Byron Bay. They went to Byron Bay, a good end of season trip, which I was supposed to go. And I said if we won a trophy there, I'd go with them. Yeah. I didn't, because I had to go to Bali with my family. So good man. It was probably a good decision that I didn't go with them. But no, I think the players had a really good celebration. I think we had a great reception in Rundle Mall, which we had so many people out to, which, the South Australian government, Peter Malinowskis came out, showed his support. He was great through the whole process of, the Adelaide Oval stuff. It was supposed to play there. We played at Karen Rolton. The Sucker, did everything great for us. They just showed what a great organisation we have supporting us in the Sucker. We had some great celebrations there. West End were fantastic. Our major sponsor put on some, a big session of beers for him at the Queen's Head. I only lasted halfway through that because I might have gone a bit heavy the day before. But we had a great time, and there's no doubt it was definitely celebrated well. So And it's now sort of, I went away overseas and I probably sat down. It was probably then I realised sort of the extent of what exactly we just sort of achieved. And but now it's more about had some nice time off. Guys have been away. Some guys playing cricket in England still. We're getting to that point now. We're about 4 weeks away from getting back to training. So we switch back on and we want to do it all again.
Comes around quickly, doesn't it? So
yeah, it does. Yeah. It's I guess it's still sort of a bit surreal to think about exactly what's happened. But by the time you get over it, we've debriefed the season. We're still sort of doing that with the coaching group. We've got a couple of days this week that we're sitting down with our coaches to make sure we went through what really worked well and maybe what didn't, and then how can we implement that going forward. And then the big thing is keeping that messaging similar to the group, but also keeping it not stale. We want to make sure that there's still life in the party around the messaging we give, and there's still they want to achieve as much as they can, and not now that we've done it, let's just be happy and cruise. We want to make sure we keep doing it now. So that's a big job for us coaching staff going forward.
I want to go back a few years ago, like you mentioned before, when Dizzy was at the helm, and obviously we were struggling year on, and we'd sort of be in games, but then we just sort of collapse, and there was that sort of, I guess, that constant situation where they'd be competitive, but they just couldn't get through like they did this year with the games and stuff like that, winning plenty of outrights. But where do you think the turning point came from, Rhino, where obviously the recruiting's been really good, looking at in-state players, Jason Sanger, these sort of guys we talked about off air, like Thornton, these sort of blokes as well. Where do you think the turning points come for the club, though, to turn things around so quickly as well?
I think one of the big things that I've found my first year, not last year, 2 years ago now, was exactly what you mentioned there. We'd have some really good games or really good sessions. We'd have some really good sessions. We'd have some really bad sessions, which wouldn't make it great games, great performances. One of the first conversations I had as a senior coach or head coach was with the batting coach, with Steve Stubbins, and we had a really good batting unit, but we needed to stop losing 4 for 10 or 4 for 20 or 4 for 50, and we did that in that first year I was there in a number of those games. So I'm pretty honest about the way I go about things. I had a way in my head that I wanted to hit it head on and ask the questions, and it may not have worked, and I may have lost the players and I may have lost the coaches, but I challenged Stubbo on our batting unit and our batting group, and how can we be better at that. And the thing with that is, as a couple of people told me, that if you start talking about it, you start thinking about it more. I sort of went the other way and said, well, we are thinking about it because we're doing it. We're in those positions a lot more than we should be, and so I challenged Stubbo around that, and to his credit, he went away and looked at a couple of things. He's very deep into reading research and other coaching manuals and coaching books and listening to podcasts, and he came back and he set not this one session, he set a couple of sessions up around playing under pressure, and that was the other part. Is when we're under pressure, we didn't cope, and he put these sessions together that were unreal. Indoor centre, which is very limited to what you can do, but we had different people throwing. Cricketers are quite creatures of habit, so they like having similar people throw or the same people around in your coaching group. That's what they see every day. So when you get people in, they're sort of like, who's this bloke and why is he in here or she in here? So we got the women's coaches in. Mick Delaney, we had all those sort of different people come throw and just distract them on what they're trying to do and how the point of it was to try and get their routines top notch. So every time they face the ball, what routine do you need to make sure that you're focusing on that ball and not worrying about who's doing that, she's doing that, or we had music going, we had different stupid sounds going on the speakers around. We just distracted them, and that everyone, I've told that story a couple of times. They're like, "How does that?" It's like, well, it's your concentration on every time you face the ball. It's like a bowler. Every time you bowl the ball, you've got to make sure you're focused on what you're trying to do. As soon as your mind drifts, that ball's not going to go where you want it to go. So we did all that. Stubbo, I'll give him credit for a lot of that. He set a lot of that up, and it worked. Once we moved outside, we put emphasis on batters not getting out in nets. We had the word purpose. We use that all the time. We still will. When we go and train, we have to have the purpose to get better and be better. And by I reckon maybe the first game after our sessions, when we get outside in that early or mid-August or early September, batters walking out, not being able to necessarily score because the bowling's so good, or the batting's so good that our bowlers aren't getting wickets. So all of a sudden that becomes a competitive high pressure situation in trainings, which is what you get out in the middle when you go out and playing games. So I just saw our training sessions at an unbelievably high level. And I've been lucky enough to play for Australia, and every time we train there, you go on 100%. That's how I wanted our training sessions to be, and again, with the support of our staff and the setup of our sessions, that's what they were. And so when you look back and say, how many times were we 4 for 40 or 4 for 20? I reckon there were 1 or 2 times. And I probably think that one game which we lost here against New South Wales, we lost 1 innings and 1 run. That was one of them. And there weren't too many other games. And if there were, we were able to fight it out. So we weren't rolling over 150 or 200. Exactly. Well, finals are a great example.
Unbelievable.
3 for 28.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And then Kez and Sanger, just incredible partnership.
And that's the belief, that no matter where we are, we can still win it. If we can't win it, we're gonna draw it. And again, we lost 1 Shield game. I think we drew 3. We were in trouble in a couple of those games, but we fought it out.
Amazing.
I think the first one day of the year, we got bowled out for 150 against WA, and we won by 10 runs. So that's the other part of it is when you get to that training level and habit, your belief sets in as well that no matter what happens and where we are, we're going to fight it out, and you have trust in your own ability to be able to do that. So
good, mate.
There's a number of things there, but I mean, again, I'm not taking credit for all that. It's the staff that I have around me that build that up. And we roll it out. And again, to the players' credit, they took it all on board and we saw the results this year.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. And like you said before, it's a credit to you and the staff for everyone really involved for such an amazing turnaround. I wanted to ask you a question. I know you were part of the IPL when it really first started and involved there overseas. And there's been a lot of talk about the situation with Trav Head choosing to play IPL over the Sheffield Shield final. Yeah. In your own mind, were you disappointed by that, or did you sort of understand, having been involved in the IPL yourself in the past?
I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I'm probably disappointed in the fact that we want Trav playing, and I know Trav would have loved it. But I'm not. One thing I've learned over time, and it's easy for me to say because I never had the decision to make. I didn't have to choose that or this, but I mean I don't sort of see that now. It is you got to choose one or the other, but. It is what it is these days. We know what the IPL brings, and we know the financial gain from that. And I must admit, there was a little murmur that Trav may have been even flown back to be in that. That might have been a loose rumor. In my head, I probably made it grow a little bit bigger than probably what it was. But I think the question was asked if he could play, and the times didn't match up. So that was it. He said he couldn't. He would love to, but he couldn't. But it's too much of a financial game, which is fine. That's the day and age we're living with cricket. And so for me at the point, it was disappointing. Yeah, we want Trav playing with us, but it is what it is, and that's a decision. And it wasn't just him; it was Jake Fraser-McGurk, it was Spencer Johnson, it was I think there would have been a couple other players. I think who did we play? Queensland. Xavier Bartlett went. So there's. It's all around it is what it is now. That's just it's the thing that you just sort of when you're playing ahead and you know that the final's on this date and you look at other whether it's international cricket or whether it's the IPL, then they clash, then you're not going to probably have the players, and that's okay. So again, as I said, I never had to make that decision. My decision was always I'm going to play for my state or I'm going to play for my country. But I never was earning the money that they earn, and I never had to make the decision. So. But again, if Trav, if he wants to play, that's fantastic. But if he doesn't, I understand as well. We all understand, and it's all okay. So it's sort of an unwritten, what's the word? Not unwritten law, but it's just what's accepted these days, and that's okay. Yeah,
it's an interesting landscape, isn't it? Because we both grew up in the same sort of era of the 80s and 90s when you had packed MCGs and SCGs. ODIs, Michael Bevan hitting a 4 off the last ball, that sort of thing, and test matches and ODIs were the thing back in those days, and before T20, and obviously it's changed a lot now, and it's a bit sad when you have situations like it was a couple of years ago where South Africa put in a second 11 team against New Zealand, but then you can't sort of, it's so tricky because you don't want to sort of have a go at them because, like you said, the money that these guys get thrown at them sets their life up and their family up, doesn't it? So it's so tricky.
Yeah, it is, and I think there's way too much cricket this day and age now. It's ridiculous how much cricket there is. I think, I personally don't think we don't necessarily need an international T20. I don't know why we do it, because I know why the ICC do it, because it's huge money, right? But I personally don't think we need that. We only play in the national T20s leading into a T20 World Cup, and they'll play. Now they go playing, from one in the off year to playing 7 or 8 in a build up to a T20 World Cup, which is just ridiculous overkill. We've got enough top notch, unbelievably high skilled T20 tournaments, if that's the right word. Probably didn't explain that well, but there's enough IPL, BBL. The T20 Blast in England is quite a good there's so many good competitions. There's the MLC now in America. There's enough around to not have a World Cup.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But again, it's a good financial gain for most of these players, and that's why, as much as I still think, a lot of our players are putting their country first, no doubt. And I think we've seen, obviously, well, it's probably a conflicting thing, but with India, what's happened in India, Pakistan, there's been a couple of guys not go back to the IPL, partly maybe because they experienced a very daunting, being at Dharamshala when the lights went out, when the bombing was not far away, but also, with the World Test Championship coming up, I'm sure that's in the back of their mind now with the IPL going longer. They didn't want to go back. So they're still choosing country over domestic tournaments. But again, I think there's so many good domestic tournaments around the world that we just don't need that T20 international stuff. But it's, as I said, it's going to be there because the ICC run it, and they want money as well, and that's just the way it is. So it's going to be, it's the way it's not going to get any less, and I think every time now there's a gap in the calendar, there's like, we'll put a T20 or a one day.
There's Mickey Mouse games that have no people there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so you talk about the South Africa B team. I'm a bit of a traditionalist and old school. I just don't think that should happen. I think, you've got to have, when you play for your country, you've got to have your best team play. It happened, I experienced a few years ago when I was on a tour with the Australian cricket team in New Zealand, and they had to leave early, I think, before, I don't know if there was 1 or 2 games left in New Zealand, because they had to go to South Africa for a test series. So they were almost overlapping. The T20 finished one day, and I think 2 days later the test match started. So you almost had, that was the first time that I remember that we've had 2 Australian teams, which to me doesn't go.
No, exactly. I agree with you. And T20 cricket, obviously it's, you've got 2 young kids yourself. I've got a young daughter, and the kids just love the big bash and what have you, and I can kind of understand it. But I'm like you, I love the traditional Test cricket and ODIs.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though T20 has sort of changed the landscape for the worse, in the fact that Test cricket and ODIs now, they just don't get the crowds there anymore, except for the Ashes and when we play India?
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate. The biggest series are always going to get the Ashes, India, even South Africa to an extent now has probably dropped off a bit. But I think we've got to be careful, and you hear it a lot. I mean, I've heard it a lot in the last 10, 12 years, is Test cricket's going to die. I don't think it's going to die. It's definitely going to die between us and India and us and England. But we've got to make sure, and I know that, this World Test Championship's probably helped a little bit, that, you've got something to play for. But how do we get the lower countries playing more or getting against the bigger countries? Now, I don't know how that's going to work because of what we just spoke about. There's so much cricket and they can't fit it in. But they're talking about having a two division sort of setup where they, promotion and relegation, top 2 play off in their final, the bottom 2 obviously drop down. So whether that might work, I don't know. That, if we can get a Zimbabwe or even Bangladesh who have dropped off a bit, even Ireland or someone playing in that top division against the big countries, then who knows? That's only going to make it better. But
yeah,
I haven't got the answer. As I said, it's so hard to fit different series of cricket in now with all the money around with all these T20 tournaments. But maybe the ICC need to sort that out and just say, no, we're doing this, and this, and in our test series, and that's what it's got to be. And then players will then maybe have to decide what they want to do. But I'm sure a majority of them will play for their country.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope it stays that way for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get back to your own career, mate. Grew up in the northern suburbs. We're actually not too far from each other. I was in Salisbury East and you were Salisbury Park, Trinity boy.
Yeah.
Talk us through your cricket journey, mate, how it all sort of began, and playing for Northern Districts and then through to SA and then eventually Australia.
Yeah, it was a bit of a slow start. I probably started off as a batter through the lower grades at Salisbury, before Northern Districts at Salisbury, and starting I think it was about a 16-year-old in the 4th grade as a batter. It was one day when we weren't taking any wickets in the 4th grade, which was D grade back then, or fourth grade. That one of my mates who sort of knew me said to the captain who'd been around for a while, he said, "Why don't you try and give Ryan a bowl as a bowler?" He didn't even know I was a bowler. And I bowled and took fifer. So that was it. I was sort of, from that moment, I was able to be, I was batting probably 6. Probably dropped down the order with the bat and started bowling a lot more. But yeah, from then up, I grew up at a great club at Salisbury. I had some great older blokes there, and Ans Hydrick, Wayne Bradbrook, Noel Filkey, all the great names that a few of them played for South Australia. Glenn Bishops were there. Played a little bit of high level cricket, if not second 11 cricket. But the club itself was just a great club, quite a successful club, and then sort of merged into Northern Districts, which was Elizabeth, who were only a couple of years in the first grade comp, and then they didn't go so well, so we sort of merged, and again we just had a great huge club. We at first we sort of divided between Salisbury and Elizabeth. We divide our games, and slowly graduate or move back to Salisbury as a home base. But it was the club itself, just again, to say the older statesmen, they were the ones that taught myself and guys like Mark Cosgrove and Graham Manu how to play the game, and how to be around the team, and it was just a really cool club. So. And then obviously from there, just graduated through to playing for South Australia. I spent about 7 years, I think it was, on South Australia list, the state list. I was in and out. I was a bit of a rat bag as a young kid, so I didn't necessarily apply myself to my training. Thought I was at the time, but I wasn't. And then I think about in year 5, I actually lost a contract. I missed out on one because I just wasn't. I was inconsistent. But I can't remember who it was, but someone had knocked one back. So that came back to me. So I got a second chance, basically. And I remember Wayne Phillips, who was coach at the time, the great Wayne Phillips, said, he sat me down and just, what do you want to do with your life? So I'm going to be a cricketer. He said, well, you've got some talent, but the way you're training and the way you're going about stuff now, you're not even going to go close. So, these are 1 year contracts. So he said, you've got an opportunity now to try and, work it out and get yourself right. And I did. I went away, spoke to my parents about it too, and my dad was never really that pushy, but he said to me, well, not often you get a second chance at trying to live your dream. So went back, trained my butt off. I actually got injured at the first club game of the season. I did my knee, I think it was that year. So I did cartilage, and so I was going really good, and then soccer warm-up, which everyone says, oh, bloody soccer warm-up, but I wasn't actually near the ball. I went to change direction the opposite side of the ball, and my knee just went. So, So I had all that, that chat, 1 year contract, and I was like, trained really hard. I bowled really well coming into these games, threw my knee out for about 5-6 weeks, and then come back and thankfully, still bowled okay and got myself going. And then from there on, a couple more years here, and then moved to Queensland. I wanted a 3 year contract here. Rod Marsh would only give me 2. Queensland came in with 3, a little bit more money, not much more, but away I went to Queensland. So had a great time up there. Obviously played in Winning Shield. I played in a couple of Shield finals, played in the Winning Shield, a couple of one-day finals, and then obviously went on to represent Australia from there. So, I guess a career of 2 tales, where I was, the young thinking I was great, but I wasn't, and then, finally working it out and getting fit and getting strong and looking after myself and bowling well, and away I went. So
what a great story for people that sort of are listening or watching as well, that, if you do get that second opportunity, absolutely take it and don't sort of take it for granted. Partying's fun, all that sort of thing, but if you get an opportunity, you've got the talent, then do it. And that's a great credit to you.
Yeah, Rhino. And that was the thing, I took it for granted. Was earning money. I wasn't earning great money, but I was still earning money, and I was, training here every now and then. And and then the difference of when I did start training, well, obviously we saw the improvement. But I talk, a lot about that, my life sort of story, because, we've got most of the guys this day and age are all, there's not too many 30-year-olds playing club cricket even, or, even for South Australia. So it's I tell that story a bit, that if you want your dream, you can get it. It's just you got to work hard to do it and get there. So, and I tell that story quite a bit.
Well done, so credit to you. And what was it like to represent your country, and tell us about playing that first test match, and obviously got to play 27 in the end. So. Yeah,
I mean, one thing I'd probably, if I was ever going to play for Australia, I debuted in 2009 in one-day cricket, which I got called in as a backup to end up being Sean Tate, who I went down to Hobart I just finished playing a one-day final in Brisbane and won club cricket. Celebrated that night. The next morning, I got a call. You got to come down to Tassie tonight because there's a game on Wednesday that that Tatey's a bit sore. And I was like, far out. Went down. Ended up playing. Tatey pulled out literally at the last second before the toss, and I ended up playing against South Africa. So, I've got the point I was trying to make then. But you just never know when your time comes. So I thought so that's what I was going to say. I always thought if I was ever going to play for Australia, it would be one-day cricket and eventually T20 because I was sort of I could bat a little bit but bowl, and then my form was good enough, and to get the opportunity to play Test cricket was a dream come true. Again, it was not something I never thought I'd ever do, and to play it with Ricky Ponting and Mike Hussey and Mitchell Johnson, all those sort of guys that you look up to, and it absolutely was a dream come true. And Ricky presented my cap in New Zealand, and it was based in reserve. It was fantastic. My family were there, and again from that moment on, I was a Test cricketer after getting your hat. But I never thought of myself as a Test cricketer unless I don't know, put a number on. If I played 10 tests and I can actually call myself, and I ended up playing 27. I wish I had played more. I had a couple of little injuries here and there, but so to play 27 tests, it's an absolute, to look back on it, it's a nice feeling.
And what were some of your biggest highlights from playing Test cricket? Other than debut, obviously.
Yeah, debut was big. I mean, some of the players you play against, again, Sachin Tendulkar and Rahul Dravid and that Indian team, Laxman, who was so powerful and so strong, and again, Virat Kohli, AB de Villiers, all these great players that you just look back now, look at their records, be able to play against them was amazing. But I think a couple of things that probably come to mind are the 13-14 Ashes when we won 5-0. That to me was amazing. Previously the year before that, obviously we had back-to-back Ashes that year. We'd lost in England, and I think we lost 3-1, but it was a lot closer. We thought it was a lot closer than that. We had talk about South Australia we had a couple of bad sessions here and there in the games, and it cost in the Test matches that cost us the game, and so we were so close there. But I remember the build up to that that return series in Australia was so pointed and directed in our plans around their players, and Michael Clarke was so determined to win that series and win it back. We had really good preparation. So to win that 5-0, to watch the way Mitchell Johnson bowled in that series, obviously he'd come back not long before that after quite a serious foot injury, and for him to come back and bowl the way he did was fantastic. So to win that 5-0 was an amazing experience. And then from there we went on to South Africa to virtually straight away to win over there. I think we won 2-1 over there. And I was lucky enough to take the last couple of wickets in the last 4 overs of the Test match, which was one of the hardest Test matches we'd ever played, because we'd fielded for 150 or 60 overs, and we won. We got the last, 4 or 5 wickets in the last 2 hours to win that Test match. So, phenomenal. And that took us to number 1 in the world, which is what we were aiming to do and be. So that little period there was a great, sense of satisfaction to spend so much energy in that, especially in that last Test, or in the whole series, the 2 series, and to come out at the end to get that result was quite amazing.
And one final one, funniest teammate and why? I'm guessing Warnie would have been one of those.
Warnie? I never played with Warnie.
Oh, didn't you?
No, I never played with him, but he came on a couple of tours. So yes, it was still funny. Yeah. He came on that tour to South Africa. He did that one we won, I think it was. But he came over for Darren Lehman had got him over for a T20 to assistant coach, which is the series after the Test series, and he came over 2 weeks before, and he spent a week to a week and a half with us, and it was fascinating. I hadn't spent a lot of time with Shane, and for him to come in, and obviously his cricket nous was unbelievable. He's got an amazing cricket brain, but some of the stories he told us outside of cricket was quite amazing as well, to be honest. But to be able to spend that little bit of time with him was fantastic. And then over time, again, he'd sort of come and catch up and say good day. But he was one. I think I had some great characters. Pete Siddle was a great. He was always a funny character. Dave Warner would just, he was our sort of attack dog, in the team when we were playing, and he never got personal with players, but he would always just rub players up the wrong way, opposition players, and some of the stuff he'd say, he always wanted us to back him up, but some of the stuff he'd say, we just laughed. And the opposition would see that, and they'd be like, he's just not an idiot, but he was hilarious in some of the stuff that he said and did, and
brilliant.
But again, we loved. He was great in that team because he pissed the opposition off, which is what we wanted him to do. So, but I was lucky enough to play with some great characters and some funny blokes. But it was a great experience.
Thanks so much for joining us on Legends of Bevo for a chat today, mate. It's been an absolute blast.